Hi, everybody, and welcome to another Second Breakfast. This is your host, Andy Roth, and I'm the co host, Philip Duvall. I have no idea how to host our show. So you can,
Oh,
am I right? It is the Second Breakfast podcast, and you are Andy Roth, and I'm Philip Duvall.
everything you have said is factually correct.
So far, so good. That was so uncomfortable.
That was
Let's never,
I'm itching all over. That
let's
was
never do that again.
we're never gonna do that again.
It's like trying to write with your right hand when you're left-handed.
It's true. It's true. Today we're gonna do another viewer mailbag. Should be a lot of fun. We have been getting ace questions over the past week or
We
so.
have. Well done,
Uh,
America,
yeah, well done, America.
and viewers abroad.
Indeed. So I will be asking the questions, but Phil and I both have advanced knowledge of said questions, which doesn't usually mean that we don't stop and think about it like it's the first time we've not only heard the question, but indeed the English language.
It's true. And we
But
haven't spent a lot of time, to be completely honest, we haven't spent a lot of time on the questions.
That's true. That is
But it's
true.
like, this is not like we didn't go and do some research. I'd like to make two notes, if you don't mind,
Please
really
do.
quick.
Go for it.
One, we have viewers in Ireland. What up? So when I say America, what I mean is Ireland also. Sorry, Ireland. World viewers, where I'm excited that we have international viewers. I think
Indeed.
it's fantastic.
Yes.
But our appeal, it goes beyond borders. Let's be clear about that.
It's true.
Second thing is, one of our friends recently talked about our technology, and that sometimes things are a little bit jumpy and we're a little out of sync. We know, and we're working on it. We don't have a lot of money. We're very poor, and so we are using technology that is, how do I put this, free.
Yes.
It's strange because to some degree our viewability and accessibility is limited by our budget, but our budget is limited by how many people watch us. It's like it's a little vicious cycle.
It's
But if you
true.
can get past a little bit of that and recognize how amazing we are, I think everyone will be better off.
Um,
Those are the two things, just kind of public service announcements that I wanted to float out there. I hope you don't mind.
I don't, and they were very well said.
Thank you. Let's question it up for our mailbag.
Let's do it. I'm not aware of this young man. He is a friend of, I presume, many people, but not me personally.
Many people.
The first question comes from a young man by the name of Saba.
Just Saba.
Saba. Sorry, Saba.
Saba.
You can
Okay.
call me ND
He
if you
gets
want.
that from the white people a lot. It's okay.
Oh, you're the worst.
You're white.
I'm really interested in how each of you developed such a passion for films. Was there a specific moment? Maybe there's that one film that changed it all for you. Would you like me to answer? Would you like to answer?
I'm so excited. When I was in preschool, my parents took the entire family out of school for the opening day of Return of the Jedi. So I always forget if Jedi came out in 82 or 83. So I was either 3 or 4, far too young to see Return of the Jedi. And we went on opening day in the middle of the day with both of my brothers, my entire family, and we saw Return of the Jedi. My parents were not movie geeks by any means. Like, some of these
Sure.
people you talk about, like, are movie geeks, their parents were big movie fans. They weren't. I don't know why this happened. Like, I can't fathom why this is something my family did, but we did it. My first memory from a movie, like on a screen, implanted in my brain, is when they take off Darth Vader's mask.
Nice.
It's one of my earliest memories as a person.
Nice.
It's the first movie I remember, and it's why I get weird about the Star Wars thing, and why it's like, it's not even like, it's not, but I've got to be honest with you, I can't remember a time when I wasn't watching movies. I can't remember a time when I wasn't just overly excited about them. And when I was a kid and when I would stay home sick, I wouldn't watch TV. I would watch movies. I wouldn't watch cartoons. I would watch movies. I would put on a movie and watch it, and then when that was over, I'd watch another one. And I had 2 older brothers, and a lot of things videotaped. And so by the time I was like 4 or 5, I had Stripes memorized. I had Star Wars memorized. I had Superman 2 memorized.
Nice.
So movies have just been but that's my first big memory. But I've never known a time when movies weren't just. I've just been in love with them forever.
Yeah. Remember, this is not even close to your main point, but do you remember when there weren't a billion channels? It's still kind of true now with a billion channels. Remember how before there were a billion channels, how terrible daytime television was? I mean,
Maybe that's why I didn't watch TV growing
yeah,
up. Now you can
honestly,
watch reruns of things you loved, but back in
that's
the day,
it's got to be part of it, right?
yeah, yeah, well said.
I confess I don't have a singular memory, or certainly not one that sticks out to me. It's just something that I always did. I always went to the movies. And we had an entire like bureau armoire filled
Yeah,
with VHS tapes.
yeah.
And you know what? One of my earliest memories. This is not one of my earliest experiences because you'll see it can't be. I may have told you about this. I don't think I've done it on the podcast. I loved the Star Wars movies, and I found a movie, like just written on there, called Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope, and I was like, Episode 4? There was a fourth movie? I thought it was. It didn't
Sure.
register, and
Sure.
I was so excited. And
Oh, Andy.
I know, I was also, like 5, but I was so excited, and I turned it on, and I was like,
Oh,
what is this? And then I was like, well, I might as well, I'll go ahead and watch it, right? But I had seen it before, right? I still seen it before, so it was like my several time watching it. But I tell that story not to show that I was, at the very least, not more advanced for my age back then, but just to say that is what movies did to me even then. I was like, I know what I'm doing for the rest of the day, and what I'm doing is loving this, and
yeah.
and so that's probably my earliest memory of a moment where I recognized what movies meant to me. And also, my mom doesn't really like movies, which is fine. You're perfectly valid in not liking movies, but
It's not true, but continue.
that has done two things. One, it has been the thing that my father and I bond over. We talk about movies. We go to movies together. Every time I'm in town, I try to go to at least one movie with my dad. And it also makes those movies that my mom does come to, that much more special. And it's just it really is like it's sort of inextricably linked to my sense of self, and that might make me sound shallow, and I really don't care, because it just
movies are stories. I mean,
Yeah.
the stories are the things that make the world go round. I mean, that's to me when I said, okay, I'm not going to go into movies, I'm going to go into the priesthood, and I decided to do that. A big part of the draw for me has always been the opportunity to tell stories. That the Bible is filled with stories that mean so much to me, and then in my job in preaching, and many times is storytelling that affects change in the world. So I don't think it's shallow. There are movies that are perfectly capable of being shallow, and you and I love those movies.
It's true.
But I don't.
But as
think
an art form, no, you're right. You're right.
And I will go. I will say this. This sounds really goofy, but everything we've said so far sounds goofy as all hell.
We're goofy people. Go for it.
I can tell you the movie theater that I saw almost any single movie that you mentioned to me that I've seen.
Nice.
I can almost always tell you, and in some cases I can tell you the screen. I remember exactly where I was for Star Wars.
I certainly can't do that, but I could
in some cases,
sure. I would say for at least 80% of the movies I've seen in my life, I think I could probably do the same thing, and that just speaks to sort of how fundamental they are. To both of us. So I'm sorry that I don't have a better answer or a more complete.
Andy, it's a fantastic answer. You're
there wasn't one seminal moment, but I actually think the reason behind that is why they're so important to me.
Andy, it's not your fault.
Stop.
No,
Stop.
Andy, it's not your Andy.
Stop.
It's not your fault.
No, stop
Andy,
it.
It's not your fault. It's not your fault, Andy. It's not your fault. It's not your fault.
Question number 2. Question the second.
Dude.
How much do critics' reviews influence your opinions of movies? What critics do you enjoy most? And this comes to us from longtime watcher and listener, longtime contributor, Mike Robb. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Mike Rob. Mike Rob will be a guest on the show at some point.
It's true.
And then everything will change. You go first.
Okay. The answer is pretty much not at all. I don't really read critics. There is one, and he is my favorite. And I'll get to him in a second.
Yes.
But they don't. I wasn't always this way. I was because I was younger. I was a kid, and I was easily influenced by other people. I find I'm not so easily influenced. If I like a movie, I'll just like it, and if I don't, I just won't.
Yes.
And I can speak more about that, but I'll speak more through the critic that I enjoy the most. And while this might be, Phil, the safe answer, my answer is Roger Ebert. And the reason.
No, I know that. Yeah.
The reason that he is the critic, and there are others that I enjoy, but I don't set myself to reading them. A.O. Scott, I think, is good. The people who write for Entertainment Weekly when they're not constrained by Entertainment Weekly's like word count, I actually quite like what they do. Someone that I do not like, and it might be a generation gap, I guess, but I think she is way too snooty about things. She is also not writing anymore because I am almost positive she is dead. Is Pauline Kael?
Yeah, she's like a big deal.
She's a big
huge
deal, and I get why
I have
she's
read
important.
zero of her things.
I get why she's important, but she doesn't
I
do it for
almost
me.
feel like she's important partially because she was a time when movie reviewers were important.
That's fair.
Now
But-
we have aggregates. Now we just say how many tomato
Right.
on Rotten Tomatoes, how many people like it.
Right. Ebert. The reason I love Ebert so much, first off, his writing is just so brilliant. He's the first movie critic to win a Pulitzer for movie criticism in newspapers. He's just or magazines or everything the Pulitzer covers. Obviously, he's brilliant, and it shows in his love of movies. But he doesn't just like snooty movies.
It's true.
But that is not why that's why I enjoy reading him. But the reason I read him is this. It is true that we have similar tastes, but our tastes are not identical. But when I get to the end of one of his reviews, I will know whether or not I will like that movie, regardless of what he thinks about it, because he's gotten not so good at this in recent years. He doesn't really do spoilers, but he will talk about the movie. He will talk about aspects of the movie, and I feel like I am well armed with knowledge about that movie without it being ruined for me. And that's what I look for in a critic, right? I mean, that's like you don't want someone to tell you the movie, that's spoiling the movie. But you want to know if you're reading criticism, there's at least a part of you that wants to know, what am I going to think about this movie?
Yes.
Is it worth my time? And Roger Ebert gives that to me 95% of the time.
I generally know I think that makes a lot of sense. I generally know whether or not I want to see a movie. And then look for a critic that will agree with me, so that I can, because that's what we do with reviews. Is we look for, there's a website that does music reviews called Pitchfork, and I would just go on there and read about music that I really liked, and then just get furious when they would say anything even remotely. Because I think a lot of times movie reviewing, which is why you and I don't want to do movie reviewing on this in our conversations, is because movie reviewing is critiquing a lot of times and finding what's wrong with. I posted the other day on Facebook, like, Wreck-It Ralph is a perfect movie, and immediately 3 people posted things that were wrong with it. And I was like, what's your point? Like, I just ignored them, and they're friends. I like them. If you're watching, keep watching and give me money, but that's ridiculous of you. Like, So I have a problem with that. I also would say I like it. I pretty much know if I'm going to see something no matter what. And then if the aggregate of people I fall for the aggregate. I'll look on Rotten Tomatoes, and if it says 40%, if it's like right on the margins and I really want to see it, I won't care. But if I'm kind of interested in something and then it just gets nailed and pounded by like everybody, I'm not gonna check it out. Right. Because of you, I have paid more attention to Roger Ebert. Also because all of his reviews are very easily searchable.
Yes,
there was a period of time where Joe Morgenstern for Wall Street Journal was my favorite writer, a film reviewer. I don't always agree with him, and I just read him less and less now because now I just think he's so negative, basically.
Interesting.
But he wrote this about the movie Lost in Space when the movie version of Lost in Space came out. He said, "You've got to see this movie to believe how incoherent it is, though I don't mean to suggest for a moment that you should see it. Better and cheaper to wrap a towel around a baseball bat and bang yourself on the head for a couple of hours. How great is that?
Here's how great that is. I
Oh,
remember you telling me this story. I had forgotten where it has
yeah,
come from, and
yeah,
here is something I say at least once a month. Wow, I could do that thing, whatever we're
hmm
talking about. I could do that, or I could wrap a towel around a bat and beat myself in the face, and
yep,
I'd have just as much fun.
yeah,
And
yep,
and that so
yeah.
congratulations,
So
Joe Morgenstern, you have
you're
made it
welcome,
into my
and yeah,
vernacular.
but I've stopped reading him. There was a magazine back in the '90s called Movie Line that I thought was really, really good, and they had
Yeah,
really interesting takes. I think that was the closest to what you're talking about for me. Was in the '90s there was a thing called Movie Line magazine,
right.
and their take on movies was, I thought, even when I disagreed, really interesting.
Yes,
But by and large, I don't read movie reviews anymore. I just
sure.
don't. I just talk about them with my friends and see or don't see them.
Right. I'm gonna use Lost in Space as a segue into our
Perfect.
final
Approach.
question. Although I'm guessing it will be neither of our answers to this question. This one comes from a new viewer and a new contributor, Zan Franklin. Hello, Zan. What is
About
the
time.
about time? What is the best movie version of a television show?
Hmm.
Go for it.
Lost in Space. Ha! Kidding. I've never seen that. Come on. I read
I'm
that
kidding.
review.
It's terrible.
Um. Uh. Okay. Never seen the TV show, but the movie Traffic, which is based on a TV series, a
Interesting.
British TV series, was fantastic.
Yeah.
Benicio del Toro in that movie is great.
Yeah.
Um, it's a really good movie. It's a fantastic movie. It was this. It was. You remember that Steven Soderbergh was nominated for Best Director for two different movies that year.
Yes.
For that and Aaron Brockovich, which he did not. That's ridiculous. That's silly. The Oscars stop being silly. But Traffic was wonderful.
Good luck with that.
Traffic was wonderful.
Yeah.
The actual answer is Arrested Development, even though the movie hasn't come out yet.
Indeed. Indeed. No, totally.
Okay,
Uh,
so what's your thoughts? Because I know there's stuff. By the way, this question that Zan's asking, we're gonna have to come back to it someday because I know there's things we're not thinking of that are
Agreed.
fantastic.
Agreed. I will say the easy answer for me is Serenity, which isn't like a version of the TV show Firefly, but
Well,
it's a
the
continuation.
continuation.
Yeah, so I think it works, and I just think
I don't
it
think it
is
works, but continue.
it
I,
is
I don't think it works because it's the same. No, because I think that's like saying Star Trek for the movies for the TV show, but I think it's like a whole different. I think she's talking about like they've tried to redo it. Maybe you're right. I don't know. Maybe you're right. Continue.
you are not the boss of me, and that remains my answer. However, there are a couple of things that
I
I
feel
also
like a
want to
failure.
say. So Serenity is my answer. I love the TV show, and I think they do a really good job of translating it to the screen. It doesn't. Here's to use Star Trek. Here's what I think is a problem with a lot of Star Trek movies. Not the best ones, but a lot of them. They just kind of feel like a really long episode,
Hmm.
rather than like a movie that is self-contained, that brings in things that you love.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
think Serenity does a really nice job of sidestepping that particular
Yes.
issue.
Yes.
I will say this, much like I want the Arrested Development movie to be my answer to this question in a few months. They keep kicking around the idea of two things. One, a Friday Night Lights movie based on the TV show, not the original
I was gonna say because there's
Friday
a
Night
movie
Lights.
that's
Right.
continue. A
And
movie based on a TV show that's based on a movie that's based on a book.
indeed,
That's based on a true story.
the Broadway musical will be coming out soon, I'm sure.
That's
There's also talk, and I don't think it'll ever happen, which might be for the best, but I still want it to happen. I want it to be great. There's talk of making a Veronica Mars movie.
you with the Veronica Mars always every day.
Well, it's really good. And I will offer this, and this is a bit of a cheat, but I really think that this captures the spirit of the question. The movie Galaxy Quest
Oh,
as a version of
total cheat, but a fantastic,
as a
movie.
version of a Star Trek genre TV show. I love that movie, and I don't think it gets enough play in our collective subconscious, and I wanted to get more play. So those are my answers. And yeah,
One other thing,
yeah,
two other things. One, when Deadwood, the TV show on HBO, was 3 seasons long, and then they canceled it, which was the dumbest thing ever. And when they canceled it, they said, "But don't worry, we're going to show two more. We're going to make two full-length movies, like to
to
round up the
finish
story."
everything up.
And then they just didn't.
That is the worst.
And Deadwood is my second favorite movie, TV show of all time,
Right.
and it hurts. Like to think about when you watch the way that ends the third season, you're like, oh, I can't wait for more, and there isn't any. And David Milch has never done anything like it before since. It just drives me nuts. The other thing I want to say is, I unabashedly and unashamedly love the A-Team movie. So there.
That's okay. That's okay.
It's not.
I like.
It's not. Andy, ask me if it's a good film.
Is it a good film?
Oh Lord, no.
My favorite and most realistic moment where they steer a tank through the air by firing in different directions. I can't top that. I'm pretty sure you can't either, so I think we should wrap up. Yeah, let's Danny, wrap it up.
Wrap it up. Yep.
This has been yet another Second Breakfast Viewer Mailbag. I'm Andy Roth. That's Phil Duvall. Thank you so much for these questions. Please keep sending them in to secondbreakfastpodcast@gmail.com. We will see you again real soon. Bye-bye.
Bye now.